That's my brother. I don't cause no pain to my brother. He know he good.
Yeah. Oh, God.
So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to our Juneteenth celebration of liberation. My name is Nikki Luckett. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the Assistant Director for Diversity Education in the Office of Multicultural Affairs on the Tampa campus. Today's event is meant to educate the USF community on the origins of Juneteenth, acknowledge the importance in American history, and celebrate it for what it is. It's a day of emancipation, a day of liberation, a day of independence. Juneteenth is on its way to becoming recognized as a national holiday because it tells a story of the United States and the fight for liberation for Black Americans. This event is put on by One USF Initiative as a partnership between the Office of Multicultural Affairs at each of our campuses, Tampa, St. Pete, and Sarasota Manatee. As a reminder, we are recording this event to be later uploaded on our YouTube channel. Please keep your mics and cameras off if you do not wish to be recorded. And also, if you're not actively speaking or contributing, please keep your mic and camera off to avoid any feedback or echoes. We will be monitoring the chat throughout the event, so please feel free to share any of your thoughts and feelings there. Also, please remember to be respectful and adhere to the USF principles of community in this discussion. So without further ado, let's get started. We'll begin with a presentation about the context and the history of Juneteenth presented by Brittany and Alyssa.
Hi, folks. My name is Brittany Bernardi. I'm the current graduate assistant within the Office of Multicultural Affairs. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Very, very excited to present today along with Alyssa Pleffner, who I'm going to allow to introduce herself in just a moment, but really excited to be here today and learning with all of you about this amazing holiday. So Alyssa, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, y'all. My name is Alyssa Pleffner. I'm the Executive Director for the Office of Multicultural Affairs on St. Petersburg campus, and my pronouns are she and they.
Okay, so we are just going to jump right in and get started. That way we hopefully can be cognizant of time and make sure that we keep to our very firm and careful timetable today. So we're going to talk a little bit about what Juneteenth is, and we are going to start a little bit about, or start the presentation today with a little bit about the background of Juneteenth. And can everyone see the slide? It's blank on my screen. I just want to make sure everyone else can see it, hopefully.
It's blank on my screen too.
I can see the PowerPoint. It says background right now.
I'm going to go ahead and stop presenting and then try to upload it one more time so everyone can see.
Hey, so while you guys are fixing that, we're going to play the Negro National Anthem that is going to be performed by Dr. Denise Davis Cotton, who is Program Director for the Paint Center at the USF St. Petersburg campus. Sorry, no, USF Sarasota Manatee campus. And so Darren will upload that for us and we get to hear that.
Give me one moment. What are you all seeing at the moment?
You're seeing your many icons on your desktop.
All right. I don't know what happened to it. Give me 1 second. Let me try again.
No problem.
Let me stop sharing. Okay. All right, let's try this again. All right.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. God of our wearies, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever in the path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, O God, where we met Thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget Thee. Shadowed beneath Thy hand, may we forever stand. True to our God, true to our native land.
All right. Thank you so much, Darren, for sharing that video. Before we get started, we are also going to read the land acknowledgement. My name is Dwayne Isaacs. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm at the University of South Florida St. Petersburg campus. So we thought it would be appropriate to read the land acknowledgement for our campus, knowing full well that land acknowledgements are coming from our other campuses very soon. If you are here today with us, we thank you so much. We know your commitment to this initiative, this program, and this day is very important. And so we really value your participation, your presence, and I, for one, am so excited to have you all here. So thank you. The University of South Florida St. Petersburg campus wishes to acknowledge and honor the indigenous communities who lived and took stewardship of this land. The university recognizes that the campus was built on the indigenous homelands and resources of the Seminole, Miccosukee, and Tocobaga people, as well as their ancestors, going back over 10,000 years. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from their territory, and we honor and respect the many diverse indigenous people still connected to this land on which we gather. This is a call for all of us to commit to continuing to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit. This land acknowledgement was created with the input from the Seminole tribe of Florida. And I'll now turn it over to Brittany Bernardi and Alyssa Pluckner, who will take us through our educational session for today.
Thank you, Dwayne. All right, Alyssa is bringing up the PowerPoint now. Alyssa, if you want to try going to that next screen, and hopefully everyone should be able to see it. Okay, I see
some yeses, some no's. Oh dear.
Yes. can see it.
Oh, darn. Okay. Okay. I see some people saying, well, what we will do, just for the sake of time, I see some people I'm seeing looks great, see it. Apparently my Teams is just angry with me. So I guess I won't be seeing it, but I'm going to keep on talking and keep on chatting. And honestly, I think the most important thing with this presentation is just listening to what we're saying, and hopefully the PowerPoint will act as a visual aid for some. But Alyssa, I'll count on you just to kind of forward the presentation as I'm going. So the first thing we're going to start with is a little bit of background on Juneteenth and essentially what led up to it in terms of where our government was. So in December of 1861, Lincoln sent his first annual message to Congress, State of the Union address, but then typically given in writing and not referred to as such. In it, he praised the free labor system as respecting human rights over property rights. He endorsed legislation to address the status of contraband slaves and slaves in loyal states, possibly through buying their freedom with federal taxes, and also the funding of strictly voluntary colonization efforts. Then, in January of 1862, Thaddeus Stevens, the Republican leader of the House, called for total war against the rebellion to include emancipation of slaves, arguing that emancipation of forcing the loss of enslaved labor would ruin the rebel economy. On March 13, 1862, Congress approved a law enacting an additional article of war, which stated that from that point onward, it was forbidden for Union Army officers to return fugitive slaves to their owners, so fugitive slaves who escaped to the North from the South. On June 19, 1862, Congress prohibited slavery in all current and future United States territories, though not in the states, and President Lincoln quickly signed the legislation. In July, Congress passed and Lincoln signed the Confiscation Act of 1862, containing provisions for court proceedings to liberate slaves held by convicted rebels, white Southern slave owners, or of slaves of rebels that had escaped over Union lines. The act applied in cases of criminal convictions to those who were slaves of disloyal masters and to slaves in rebel territory that were captured by Union forces. Unlike the first Confiscation Act, the second one explicitly stated that all slaves covered under the law would be permanently freed. However, Lincoln's position continued to be that Congress lacked the power to free all slaves within the borders of the rebel-held states. But Lincoln, as a commander-in-chief, could do so if he deemed it a proper military measure, and that Lincoln had already drafted plans to do so. Lincoln first discussed the proclamation with his cabinet in 1862. He drafted his preliminary proclamation and read it to Secretary of State William Seward and Secretary of Navy Gideon Welles on July 13th, once again, 1862. Seward and Welles were at first speechless. Then Seward referred to possible anarchy throughout the South and resulting in foreign intervention. Welles apparently said nothing. On July 22nd, Lincoln presented it to his entire cabinet as something he was determined to do and asked their opinion on wording. Although Secretary of War Edward Stanton supported it, Seward advised Lincoln to issue the proclamation only after a major Union victory. In September of 1862, the Battle of Antietam gave Lincoln the victory he needed to issue the emancipation. On September 22, 1862, 5 days after Antietam occurred, Lincoln called his cabinet into session and issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. According to Civil War historian James M. McPherson, Lincoln told cabinet members that he had made a covenant with God that if the Union drove the Confederacy out of Maryland, he would issue the Emancipation Proclamation. The proclamation was issued in two parts. The first part was issued on September 22nd, 1862, and it was a preliminary announcement outlining the intent of the second part, which officially went into effect 100 days later on January 1st, 1863, during the second year of the Civil War. On Freedom's Eve, or the eve of January 1st, 1863, the first watch night services took place. On that night, enslaved or free African Americans gathered in churches and private homes all across the country, awaiting news that the Emancipation Proclamation had taken effect, and celebrated when the proclamation was read, declaring all enslaved persons in the Confederate States of America in rebellion and not in Union hands were free. Union soldiers, many of whom were Black, marched onto plantations and across cities across the South, reading small copies of the Emancipation Proclamation, spreading the news of freedom in all Confederate states. Only through the 13th Amendment did emancipation end slavery throughout the United States. But not everyone in Confederate territory would immediately be free. Even though the Emancipation Proclamation was made effective in 1863, it could not be implemented in places still under Confederate control. As a result of the proclamation, many slaves were freed during the course of the war, beginning on the day it took effect. Eyewitnesses' accounts accounts at places such as Hilton Head Island in South Carolina, as well as Port Royal, South Carolina, record celebrations on January 1st of thousands of enslaved Black people were informed of their new legal status of freedom. Estimates of many thousands of the enslaved were freed immediately by the Emancipation Proclamation. And those kind of are varied. So, for example, one contemporary estimate put the population of Union-occupied North Carolina at 10,000, and the Sea Islands of South Carolina also had a substantial population. Those 20,000 slaves were freed immediately by the Emancipation Proclamation. Emancipation was immediately enforced as Union soldiers advanced into Confederate states. Slaves fled their masters and were often assisted by Union soldiers. Throughout 1863 and 1865, more and more Confederate states fell to the Union, with more of the enslaved being set free. However, the state of Texas continued to defy or ignore the proclamation, continuing to allow slavery to be practiced on their lands. More isolated geographically, planters and other slaveholders had migrated into Texas from eastern states to escape the fighting, and many brought enslaved people with them, increasing by the thousands the enslaved population within the state of Texas, and especially toward the end of the Civil War. Although most lived in the rural areas, more than 1,000 resided in both Galveston and Houston by 1860, with several hundred in other large towns. By 1865, there were estimated to be about 250,000 enslaved people within the state of Texas. News certainly did not travel instantaneously in 1860s, but still, the state of Texas waited considerably longer than other slaveholding states to recognize the emancipation of slaves. Multiple possible explanations exist for deferring the news for freedom. Some argue that a messenger that was on their way to Texas with the news was murdered. Others believe Texas purposely withheld information in order to maintain plantation labor forces and or to keep enslaved people working for one last cotton harvest. It should be noted that being the most southern remote slave state, of course, also had one of the lowest presences of Union troops as well. Whatever the reason, after the war came to a close in the spring of 1865, General Granger's arrival in Galveston that June signaled freedom for Texas's 250 enslaved people.
So now we move on to the actual date, June 19th, 1865. Despite the surrender of General Robert E. Lee on April 9th, 1865, the Western Army of the Trans-Mississippi did not surrender until June 2nd. On the morning of Monday, June 19th, 1865, Union Major General Gordon Granger arrived on the island of Galveston, Texas, to take command of the more than 2,000 federal troops recently landed in the Department of Texas to enforce the emancipation of its slaves and oversee a peaceful transition of power, additionally nullifying all laws passed within Texas during the war by the Confederate lawmakers. The Texas Historical Commission and Galveston Historical Foundation report that Granger's men marched through Galveston reading General Order Number 3, first at Union Army Headquarters. First at the Union Army Headquarters at the Osterman Building in the Strand Historic District. Next, they marched to the 1861 Customs House and Courthouse before finally marching to the now named Reedy Chapel AME Church. The order informed all Texans that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves were free. General Order Number 3, which began most significantly with, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness either there nor elsewhere." And although this event is popularly thought of as the end of slavery, Emancipation for those enslaved in two Union border states, Delaware and Kentucky, would not come until several months later on December 18, 1865, when ratification of the 13th Amendment was announced. The freedom of formerly enslaved people in Texas was given final legal status in a series of Texas Supreme Court decisions between 1868 and 1874.
And now, we felt it would be remiss if we didn't talk about sort of the immediate effect of what happened after this, right? So essentially what happened during Reconstruction. So this was an event to be celebrated, but as some of you probably may know, Reconstruction, it certainly did not mean the end of terror and hard times, especially for Black folks within the South. So even after the Emancipation Proclamation, 2 more years of war, service by African-American troops, and the defeat of the Confederacy, the nation was still unprepared to deal with the question of full citizenship for its newly freed Black population. The Reconstruction implemented by Congress, which lasted from 1866 to 1877, was aimed at reorganizing the Southern states after the Civil War, providing the means for readmitting them into the Union and defining the means by which white people and Black people could live together in a slavery non-existent society. The South, however, saw Reconstruction as humiliating, even a vengeful imposition, and did not welcome it. And when we say the South, of course, we mean white Southerners.
And not only that, but freed former slaves often did not receive assistance from not only the government, but also Union soldiers. Former slaves suffered greatly without the government support and services, all of which were readily available to many white people. For example, with insufficient healthcare services available to them, many former enslaved Black people suffered from a multitude of diseases that plagued the country at the time, such as smallpox and cholera, as well as starvation. Diseases spread easily amongst former Black slaves, who lived in refugee camps in the South especially, due to being tightly packed and poor living conditions. Together with physical violence at the hands of angry whites and subsequently racist and anti-Black rhetoric and practices permeating many services and businesses, life after the Civil War was extremely difficult to navigate and survive for Black folks, particularly in the South. In 1865, the Freedmen's Bureau was established. The Bureau's mission was to assist freed Black people in the South by providing opportunities for education, legal counsel, jobs, food, and job opportunities. The biggest success by the Freedmen's Bureau was increasing access to education for freed Black folks in the South. Oliver Otis Howard was appointed the first Freedmen Bureau commissioner, and under his rule, the Bureau set up 4 divisions: government-controlled lands, records, financial affairs, and medical affairs. Education was considered part of the records division. Howard turned over confiscated property, including planters' mansions, government buildings, books, and furniture to superintendents to be used in the education of freedmen. He provided transportation and room and board for teachers. Black and white teachers from the North and South, missionary organizations, churches, and schools worked tirelessly to give the emancipated population the opportunity to learn. Former slaves of every age took advantage of the opportunity to become literate. Grandfathers and their grandchildren sat together in classrooms seeking to obtain the tools of freedom. After the Civil War, with the protection of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution and the Civil Rights Act of 1866, African Americans enjoyed a period where they were allowed to vote, actively participate in the political process, acquire the land of former owners, seek their own employment, and use public accommodations. Opponents of this progress, however, soon rallied against the former slaves' freedom and began to find means for eroding the gains for which many had shed their blood. Over the course of the late 1860s and throughout the 1870s, the federal government's military presence was withdrawn from various southern states, and with the Compromise of 1877, President Rutherford B. Hayes ordered the last federal troops in the South to withdraw. With no troops to enforce the 14th and 15th Amendments, Reconstruction was at an end. Across the South, lynching, disenfranchisement, and segregationist laws proliferated. It would not be until after the Second World War and the 1960s civil rights movement that Jim Crow segregation would be outlawed. And now we're just going to talk briefly about the evolution of the celebrations of Juneteenth. So historically, Juneteenth celebrations included religious services, readings, inspirational speeches, stories from formerly enslaved people, games and contests, prayer services, rodeo events, baseball, singing, and of course, feasting. Music was an important part of the culture of enslaved people, and early celebrations of Juneteenth always included it. Afro jazz, blues, and worship music were a critical part of these festivities. The hymn Lift Every Voice was of particular significance. The Emancipation Proclamation was commonly read to kick off Juneteenth celebrations. Clothing was a crucial aspect of these celebrations as well. For formerly enslaved people, making a distinction between their lives in captivity and their lives as free people was essential, and one way to do this was to wear bright and lively clothing, something they were not able to do when they were enslaved. Finally allowed to express themselves and dress how they pleased, Black Americans donned the colors of Africa and freedom in honor of their ancestors and their struggle for liberty. Black, green, and red, the colors of the Pan-African flag, grew common, as did red, white, and blue, the colors of the American flag, as well as the Juneteenth flag. Today, and there are some pictures of some historic celebrations. And then today, Juneteenth is celebrated in much the same way that it was when it first began, with music festivals, performances, rodeos, barbecues, pageants, and more. Red food and drink are common as an homage to African narratives and West African traditions. This color is said to represent strength and spirituality and carries great weight in many aspects of West African culture. Celebrations of Juneteenth are not unlike those of the 4th of July, with parades and street fairs, dancing and music, picnics and cookouts, family reunions, and historical reenactments. Strawberry soda or red soda water and barbecuing became symbols of Juneteenth, with barbecue pits often positioned in the center of large gatherings. The Juneteenth flag is more prominent now than ever. As of yesterday, Juneteenth is now officially a federal holiday. There is some discourse about this decision, however, as many note that other legislation that would better protect the Black community have not been passed while this one has. And we encourage everyone here to continue doing further research into this in order to get a more comprehensive understanding of this decision and its implications. And here are some celebrations from today. And we're just going to play a very brief video, kind of an overview of everything we just went over. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to take part in this celebration.
Yes, thank you all so much. We hope that you enjoyed our presentation. And again, we really encourage everyone to engage in further research on this amazing day. And also, please check out the video that Alyssa linked in the chat in case you had trouble viewing it. And so now I'm actually going to turn it over to our moderators for the panel. So one of our moderators is Darren L. Gambrill, who's the Assistant Director of Student Services at USF Sarasota Manatee Campus, and Joanna Hooley, who's Acting Assistant Director of the Office of Multicultural Affairs at the USF Tampa Campus. So I'm going to turn it over to my lovely colleagues now who are going to introduce our amazing panelists.
Thank you, Brittany. I wasn't expecting the wonderful introduction, but I really thank you for that. So without further ado, let me first do some housekeeping once again. Just want to remind everyone once more that this event is, the celebration is being recorded, and we will provide an opportunity for participants to ask any questions that they may have to our panelists. And if you don't feel comfortable asking those questions verbally, then you can always put in the chat. My wonderful co-moderator and I would do attempt to do a wonderful job at reading those chats, messages in the chats. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. And I think one of the great things about this panel members is it's a very diverse group of individuals from different parts of the nation, which I hope that would really lend itself to a different perspective of what Juneteenth really is, to them. So without further ado, my first panelist, and this is not in any particular order, although I know he would like to say that I'm gonna call his name first because he's an alpha man. And but my first panelist is Corey Posey. He's the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer here at the USF Sarasota Manatee Campus, followed by Kiana Brooks, who is our Student Government Lieutenant Governor at the USF Tampa Campus. Third is Dr. Frank Pirtle, who's also an alpha man. I got to give him his respect. The third, he's an instructor for the Department of Mechanical Engineering at the University of South Florida Tampa campus. And last but far not least, my fraternity brother. He's a great Kappa man. We simply call him DA, but his name is Dwayne Anderson, and he's a fairly new member of the USF family, and he's the Assistant Program Director at the University of South Florida St. Petersburg campus. Glad to have you all. All right. So thank you. I was wondering whether or not you all can even hear me for a moment there. So with that said, we're gonna go ahead with the first question. And like I said earlier, I would love to hear the different perspectives. And as a person who was born in South Carolina, to be honest with you, I had never even heard of Juneteenth until I was well into adulthood. So so the first question is, what is Juneteenth from your perspective? And I don't know who would like to go first. Feel free. Let me just ask Corey to go first, and then you all can decide. Frank, you want to go first, Frank?
Yeah, I was going to go first. I guess my experience is exactly the opposite of Darren's. I'm a native of Houston, Texas, and have all of my family on both sides for a couple of generations have been from Houston. And I grew up celebrating Juneteenth my entire life. And so I didn't know that other people did not celebrate Juneteenth until I left Texas to go to Georgia Tech. And I'm like, okay, I have all these Black people around me, and these people don't even know what Juneteenth is. And it got even worse. Well, I was prepared for it when I moved to Florida, where I found more people who didn't celebrate Juneteenth. So for me, it's always been. We celebrated it much more intentionally than we do Independence Day or 4th of July. It definitely was a celebration where we had family gatherings, and yes, always had barbecue. That was back before I was vegan, so I ate plenty of it. But we would have, city festivals. I mean, the Emancipation Park in Houston is still a thriving park where a lot of Black organizations and other organizations have gatherings. But it was really a huge celebration in the downtown of Houston when I still lived there. I haven't lived there in years, but it still is a huge celebration amongst Black people in the Houston area. So for us, it was as big or bigger than Independence Day.
Well, yeah,
Thank you, Frank.
I can go next. Well, thank you so much, Frank, and shout out to everyone for the warm welcomes. It's my second week, so I'm definitely excited to be here and appreciate everyone for the warm welcomes. But I particularly want to go second after Frank because with Frank being from Texas, I'm from Pennsylvania, which is more north in a sense, right? And so growing up, I had no idea what Juneteenth was. It was not taught in my schools. It was not talked about in my household. I also have, this might surprise a lot of people, but my mother's majority white, and she has some Italian in her as well too. And so, with that, I was raised by a single mother, and so with my mom, a lot of that with her family, I didn't get a lot of that, and so with that, I didn't hear really much about Juneteenth at all, and so I didn't realize and understand what Juneteenth was until my early 20s. And so that's when I really started to celebrate Juneteenth, to understand what it really was and what it truly meant. We didn't have celebrations around where I was from, none of that. But however, 4th of July, everyone was out celebrating, but no one was really celebrating Juneteenth. And so once I finally, figured out honestly what it was, delved into the history of it, my professor, Dr. Roberts, who I love to this day and still keep in touch with to this day, is the first person, my first Black professor that I ever had. He introduced me into Juneteenth and educated, and it was an English course, and he had us doing some writings, and he taught us about Phyllis Wheatley and all those different things, who was one of the first Black poets, and it was actually a poet during slavery. And so that was amazing to me. And so I say all that to say I had a very different experience than Frank did. And so but I did come to learn what it was, and I'm grateful for that. And just, kind of going into what it means to me, Juneteenth for me really means resiliency, and it really symbolizes thankfulness for to my ancestors for what they did to allow me to be in this space today. And so a lot of my resilience and a lot of my work ethic, stems from that, understanding what my ancestors went through to get me here today. I'm greatly appreciative of that. And so understand that this is the way I use my voice. I use my voice through education. I'm a big fan of theory. So, specific theories, I like to intertwine a lot of my work, really focusing on race and different things of that nature. So it really represents resilience and just thankfulness from my ancestors. But I wanted to kind of chime in because I felt like my experience was a little different than Frank's, with me not really hearing about it until my early 20s. So again, thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. So.
Thank you, Dwayne. And I'm gonna call on Miss Brooks to go next. I would love to hear the student perspective.
Of course. Well, hello, everyone. I do want to say that it is Kiara Brooks, not Kiana.
I'm sorry.
But it's all
Thank
good.
you.
I'm very happy to be here with you all today. Dwayne, I think that my experience with Juneteenth is a lot more similar to yours. I will say that I was born in New York, but I grew up here in Florida. So the textbooks, the information you find on Google, it can be very whitewashed. So a lot of times I feel like a lot of people haven't really heard a lot about Juneteenth or why we need to celebrate it. I will say that when I first came to college, I became more involved with the Black Student Union. I served as the vice president last year. And with that, I was introduced to just the overall celebration of our culture that takes place on Juneteenth. We celebrate our culture, our perseverance, our hardships throughout this entire time. And I really think that Juneteenth it just signifies what Black culture has become today. I think that Juneteenth, when you step back and you really take a look at it, it shows you all of the oppressive forces that we continue to face. And it kind of shows us that our freedom and our value as people was nothing compared to how much others valued the economy. And I think that Juneteenth allows me to step back and really focus on that. And I think that I've been able to learn a lot because it reminds me that my life was not seen as equal for a very long time. And if you have not heard about Juneteenth, if you haven't learned a lot about Juneteenth, I will say take some time, watch some YouTube videos, watch a TED Talk, and really step back and understand how our history isn't as long as it may seem.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. All right, Mr. Posey.
Certainly. Good afternoon, everyone. I was raised in the Northeast as well. I'm a Jersey guy. I'm from East Orange. So, you know, not much dialogue at all about Juneteenth, but to kind of connect the stories that have been shared so far, I did attend the HBCU. I went to the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. And for those of you who are not familiar with Eastern Shore, Maryland, it is nothing like Baltimore or DC. It's very rural. And what's significant about that is it's the part of Maryland that Frederick Douglass was from. And at my home campus, there is actually a tree that's preserved on campus that is believed to be a slave tree where they hung slaves from. So they've actually built around that tree on campus in terms of its structures. And I share that with you because coming from the Northeast, without the background of Juneteenth, without the background of Kwanzaa, you know, it's just a different mindset. So coming to University of Maryland Eastern Shore and seeing that tree, that was my first representation, visual representation of slavery and what was going on at that time. You know, you're experiencing that in a real sense. So what Juneteenth means to me, it's grown in importance in my life. So I think each year that I get older, I come to respect and appreciate the holiday more and more because obviously I didn't grow up with it. And one last tidbit that I will leave you with, Miss Barnes, who is the founder of the John Riley Museum in Tallahassee, Ohio, she wanted to join us today. However, she was pulled into another meeting actually talking about the federal government decision to make Juneteenth into a federal holiday. She is an expert in that of Juneteenth, and she wanted to be sure that I share it with everyone that Florida Emancipation Day is May 20th, 1865. So that is the date that slaves in Florida was indeed free. So at a later date, she's promised to come and give some history on Florida and speak specifically about Florida and freeing of slaves in this state. But I'll leave my comments there for now.
Thank you, Corey, and that's a great segue into the next question. So, and this question is simply, do you see Juneteenth as being relevant today, and if so, why? Who would like to go first?
I'll jump in. You know, my background is higher ed. You know, and we can go all over the place if we want. We could talk about a number of different topics, but I would argue, you know, Juneteenth is growing in relevance every year. And I forget who led with it. I think it was the PowerPoint presentation we watched. But when you think about what was happening with the Reconstruction after the slaves were freed, you know, I think sometimes what gets lost in that narrative is how we freed people with no plan. You know, you had persons who was in bondage, captivity, who are now free, you know, with no access to anything. And what I would compare it to is, you know, I was in college when the internet was first introduced. You know, so when I entered college, there was no internet. And by the time I graduated, you know, the one computer lab on campus that had the internet was always full. And when you compare that to today, you know, we're all in front of our devices right now. Some of us have multiple devices going. So if I was to take that same timeline and drop it on what was happening during Juneteenth heading into the Reconstruction, you know, you just had a lot going on. You know, it's, you know, when I think about what was happening, who had access to state education, you know, the first Morrill Act was 1862. You know, that did not include Black people. Then the second Morrill Act came in 1890, which was the rise of the HBCU. So all of that was happening in that period, and we're only talking 30 years. So I think what gets lost in the narrative when we're talking about Juneteenth, you know, there was no rolling start. You know, there was no, you know, entry programs. It's, you know, slavery is over, good luck. And I think the older I get, you know, I tend to reflect on that a little more, and it helps put a lot of things that we see today in perspective.
Okay. Thank you, Cora, for sharing. Would anyone else like to tackle that question?
Yeah, I will go ahead and put in a few thoughts. I agree with you, Corey. I think that Juneteenth has shown me the overall lack of resources provided to Black people today and back then. I think that there's always going to be an entity that is going to oppress us. I feel like Juneteenth has shown us that racism is something that's learned, and being that it's something that we cannot rise above as a collective, we need to go ahead and strengthen our community. It's important for us to tell history from the perspective of our ancestors rather than learning it from others. I think that in addition to that, we have to rely on our community to uplift ourselves as individuals. So we have to really take a step back. I always say take a step back, but you really need to see the big picture in order to kind of push us to rise above circumstances that probably will not change.
I would say, well, first, before I answer that question, I'll clarify that I'm from Texas, and Juneteenth was not taught in school. It wasn't celebrated by the schools. This was all amongst us that it was celebrated, and that there was definitely an oral history. It was in none of the textbooks. It probably still isn't in the textbooks. But I think that's one of the reasons it's so important is that, you know, when Texas did recognize it as a state holiday, you know, it became an acknowledgement of some of the history. I mean, we don't get a complete understanding of history without knowing all the parts of the history and how they connect to each other. And I think even today, when I was watching the visualization in that cartoon, and it showed how the succession of states that got the news about the Emancipation Proclamation, but then when it showed the visual of those Union states that had slaves but didn't join the Confederacy, how they were allowed to keep their slaves, that just shows me the evil that exists. I won't say in a certain group of people, but I'll say in a group of people who were in power. It was not about any moral issue. It was about power. And, it's because as long as y'all stay on my side, you could keep slaves. And if we ever, take the time to read that speech that Abraham Lincoln gave, where he said, if he could prevent the war without freeing slaves, he would do that. It wasn't, we didn't go to war specifically for slavery. Slavery had been around for a long time. It was it sometimes is a very difficult position to realize that, man, you are in a place that would rather be without you. And they just pretty much deal with you because they have to. But if you weren't here, they would be really happy that you weren't. And so, so as I look more at history and the way that things were done then during Reconstruction, and I look at now, we have a Senate that everybody voted unanimously for Juneteenth, but they can't vote. They won't even hear about anything else that is much more relevant and important to Black people. And so that just tells me that, this is not done out of a sincere, their acknowledgement of Juneteenth is not out of a sincere motivation. It is something that I feel to placate and to get us to take, I'm going to celebrate Juneteenth. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm going to celebrate. But I'm also going to not forget that there's still a fight that we have to wage here on campus, in our city, and throughout our country. So it's definitely a significance because we need to know everything about our history, and there being an acknowledgement of that history by the majority that rules in this country.
Yeah, I would echo, first of all, shout out to Corey and everyone else who spoke. I would echo all those sentiments too. I think for me, I think Juneteenth is very relevant, and I think that in today's time that with the social medias and everything, it's being talked about. It's being brought up in conversations more. So that I do appreciate. I do agree with what Frank said, and that's actually what I was going to touch on. Is that while I appreciate it, and I'm going to celebrate it too. I'm going to live it up. I'm going to have my fun with my family, all those, my friends, all of that too. But at the same time, there's other things that Senate, Congress, whoever needs to be working on to protect Black people. And I don't think that's happening. There's other bills that have tried to be passed that will actually protect Black people and that have not been passed. There's lynching bills that has tried to be passed and things of that nature and that have not made it through. And so it's just like, well, when looking at this, it's great, but there are other things as well too, that need to be passed to protect Black people. And so for me, Juneteenth, yes, it's a celebratory moment, but it's just so temporary for me, because when you think about it, and I go back out into the world after I have that moment with my circle, I have to go back out into that world and still understand that my Blackness is seen as a threat to a lot of people. My melanin is seen as a threat to a lot of folks. And so while I appreciate it, it is a momentary celebration because I truly can't live in the authenticity of Juneteenth and celebrate it fully how I would like to, because I know there's still some folks who don't even view me as equal almost, in a sense. And so yeah, that's so I appreciate it. I think it's very relevant, but I think there's a lot more conversations, a lot more things that need to happen, and a lot more things that Congress and all those folks can do to protect Black people. So.
Okay, I would love to thank you all for sharing your different thoughts and experiences. I don't have any additional questions for you, but I am going to transition for my co-moderator, where she will allow the audience to ask any questions that they may have and give you all a chance to answer those questions.
Thank you, Darren, and thank you to our panelists. And Corey, Jersey girl, so I feel ya. Thank you so much. And so I would love to hear from the audience, either if you have any questions or if you have some reflections that you would like to share. This would be a great time if you could raise your hand and I will call on you. I do like that, David Hibbler. I don't mean to call you out, David, but you did say that it's performative. So I believe that you're talking about making Juneteenth as a national holiday, but yet we're not. There's other issues around that. I'm not sure if you wanted to go more into that, or I can talk. We can call on someone else.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm David Hibbler. I'm the Associate Director of Res Ed on the Tampa campus. So I don't want to diminish the significant milestone that this bill did, have in, passing the Senate and becoming a federal holiday. So not trying to diminish from it, but just, as Dwayne and Dr. Pearl mentioned, some of the other, legislation that is out there, and just like a lot of the things that are happening with voter suppression right now. It's interesting that one thing can get bipartisan, support. However, when we're talking about all Black bodies as a whole, we're not, as fervent in our advocacy. So yeah, that was the nature of that performative comment.
Thank you, David. Go ahead, Corey.
Hi, Dr. Hibbler. Brother Hibbler, we're here deep. Yeah, but I wanted to respond to your comment because I think you touched on a very important point. So for those of us that are, very familiar with the MLK holiday, there's an adage, MLK Day is a day on, not a day off. So for those of us that came up through the African American, through the Black community, we're out doing service on MLK Day. And I hope that Juneteenth takes on a similar approach, you know. So now that it is being recognized as a federal holiday, I'm hoping that we use that time to advocate for the things that Dr. Hibbler just referenced. You know, I think the journey is still long, and I think there's still a lot going on. There's still a lot of awareness and education that needs to take place. But, you know, this at least gives us a marker in the middle of the year to introduce these topics, you know, back on the forefront in all of our circles.
Thank you, Corey. Antonia.
Hey, y'all. So I have a question. Just how do you personally celebrate Juneteenth? I know for my friends and I, we have an annual celebration. It's been virtual for the last couple of years, and it has like a whole full day itinerary. But I'm always curious to know, how do you celebrate it yourselves?
Great question. Thank you. Who wants to tackle that one?
Well, I can go ahead and
go ahead, Kiara. Thank you. And then we'll go to Dr. Pirtle.
Okay, I can go ahead and start it off. I can tell you what I have planned for this year. I know that this year I have some friends that are throwing like a little pool social, and we come together, and I think that any form of celebration with a group of Black people that you love and cherish is a celebration of Juneteenth. I think that just coming together and being unapologetically Black, playing our music, dancing, having productive conversations as well, and just overall acknowledging our ancestors' contribution to where we are today.
Yeah, I'd have to say, since I left Texas, I haven't really been doing much. If I found a Juneteenth celebration going on since leaving, I would go and participate. But this Juneteenth, I'll just be educating my son more about Juneteenth. He was born here in Florida, he's been in Texas for a while, but he hasn't been around people that would celebrate Juneteenth. So he'll be getting history lessons on the 19th. And we'll probably, look at some websites, drive around, go and find some things to do. So yeah, since the 19th falls on a Saturday this year, it's perfect, because usually, though we acknowledge it's June 19th, it's usually a celebration in Texas that would be like on a Friday or Saturday, as close as we can get it to the 19th, because as I said, it was a very big celebration where it's almost like a family reunion type of atmosphere. And so it almost always was on a Friday or Saturday, but I'll find something to do, but definitely some history lessons on the 19th.
Great, thank you. Dwayne Isaacs, you want to share what you're doing? Yeah, I'm calling you out.
I put it in the chat. Yeah, no. So I'm just gathering black LGBT men to get together and talk, and we have another space where we're doing that on Friday as well. So for tourists there, so for any Black men who are in the space, we invite you to join us on Friday as well. And it's something powerful about talking to people who understand and talking to folks who get what it is that you're thinking and feeling. As I'm listening to you all speak in this room, I went to USF as an undergrad, and I can't recount the time that we had Juneteenth celebrations. I can't recount the time we even had the conversation. So this is special, right? Like, just actually having this conversation means something to me as an alumni, and being at this institution for 21 years and just seeing this one USF effort. So I appreciate y'all. If y'all are in this space and here and celebrating, having the conversation with us, this is it. This is my celebration. I'm taking it home with me all the way into Saturday. So thank y'all.
Thank you, Dwayne. Does anyone else have any comments or reflections that they would like to share? Darren?
Well, yeah, I have a question as an individual, not as a moderator.
Okay.
But I would love to hear the perspective on whether or not the panelists feel that Juneteenth at some point would be as celebratory as the 4th of July.
Yeah.
That is a really good question. I actually just put in the chat that we need more community celebrations for Juneteenth. Will it ever get to that point? I honestly think it needs to be at that point. I feel like we can't really expect it to get there if we don't come together and kind of push the importance of it. But I would definitely like for it to be as big of a celebration as July 4th, or the 4th of July. But yeah, if anyone else wants to go ahead and share their experience.
Thanks, Kiara. And thank you, Corey. I knew that there were some things going on, but I wasn't sure. So Corey put in the chat some things. Is that Tampa? I can't really read that.
That's Bradenton. That is the Bradenton Juneteenth celebration.
Okay. I think there are some things going on in Tampa. I don't have that readily accessible, but are there any other comments or questions before we move to the next entertainment portion of this program? And thank you, Gary Oliver, for putting the brother-to-brother conversations that have been taking place. There will be the next one this Friday at 5:30. So I recommend Black and Brown men to go into and join these fine men that have been having these great conversations for the past couple of months. I'm excited about that program, that they're furthering with that program. So that's exciting. Darren, did you have something to say?
Yeah, one last thing. This has kind of been alluded to earlier by the panelists and either the participants. But we know it's somewhat on the table as to making Juneteenth a national holiday. And what I'm really hoping is if it becomes a national holiday, I really hope at that point, and I really think we have a greater opportunity or chance of it becoming just as celebratory as the 4th of July in one sense of speaking.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Pirtle. So he also put something in the chat, and it looks like Gary Vinca. Thank you so much. So we do have some things going on around town, so we can check those out. Dwayne said the president's supposed to sign it today at 3:30, so we can celebrate. I'm gonna go get some red wine later. Does anyone else have any last minute questions before we move to the next portion of the program? Thanks, everyone. Well, I just want to thank the panel so much. Thank you so much for this. This has been amazing. Everyone, please stay tuned because we are going to move to the next portion of the program. And so that is our student performers that we have. And so I'm really excited to share some student performers. Our first one is Nia Simone. This is a pre-live recorded video. Nia Simone Francisco is a third-year business advertising major in the Zimmerman advertising program, minoring in sociology. She is from the Palm Beach County area and has been writing poetry since 6th grade. Recently, Nia Simone has decided to share her poetry through the art of spoken word. She loves using her voice to open conversations with the world and currently shares her work via social media on her account, Nia Simone Speaks. Nia Simone hopes to one day become a poet laureate and hopefully publish a book of all of her original poetry in the near future. This is a poem Through Our Eyes, part 2. If you could bear with me while I share that video. And here we go. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, my name is Nia Simone and I'm so excited to be here to be able to recite poetry for this amazing Juneteenth event that the Office of Multicultural Affairs has put on for us today. So I'm so sorry that I couldn't be there, but I wanted to contribute to this incredible event. I like my life unapologetically black. I have learned to work hard for the clothes on my back black. Blackness is in high demand and I am using its power to build up my brand, Black skin, black hair, black love, black everything. I am black and I am proud. Say it loud. Diversity is not a problem, it's a promise. Our people should be present in all areas of industry because black people make the world go round, you see. Don't tell me we all live in poverty because you think that's where we want to be. In reality, we work harder and smarter and show this world the most loyalty. We are special and we are successful. We are bright and we are beautiful. We are a race striving for recreation. Our role models serve as our inspiration. Black coder, black doctor, black sister, black brother. We are all one family and we strive off of one another. We have the power to be great. And we'd appreciate if you laid off on the hate. We ain't gonna be forgotten. Oh wait, have you already forgotten? We are the ones who built up this country. So let my people go and let us be free. Happy Juneteenth, everyone. Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Nia.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that beautiful poem by Nina Simone. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today. She's at her internship, but I'm so excited that she was able to send that over to us. And now I'm really excited for our next performer. If she can come onto the screen, Miss Kadreen Gale. Kadreen will be reciting a poem. Hey, Kadreen. Free at last. So let me just tell you a lot of stuff about Kadreen. She's a very, very busy woman. Kadreen is a promising senior majoring in public health and a minor in sociology also. She was recently crowned Miss USF, yay, and currently serves as a USF ambassador and as an ISLC co-chair. She's also a member of the USF Black Leadership Network and the Jamaican Alliance Network. Through the words of her home country, Jamaica, the pledge she continues to pledge is to work diligently and creatively while think generously and honestly in playing her part in the advancement of the whole human race. I welcome Kadreen Gale.
Thank you so much, Ms. Johanna, and to everyone for having me here today. I am truly inspired, and my thoughts have been provoked, to think beyond. So I was actually up until a second ago, I was going to say the poem that Miss Johanna just said. However, as I thought about everything, and what came to me was one of my favorite poems by Maya Angelou, which is When Great Trees Fall. And when I was in the pageant, my platform was just shining a light on the detrimental effects of police brutality on Black adolescent mental health, and just realizing, so many things that have happened, so many souls that are not able to celebrate Juneteenth with us. And so, yeah, I just feel like in death, there's always a greater appreciation for life, and to realize that, hey, we're marching on for a reason and with a life with us. So yes. Okay, so When Great Trees Fall by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly, or eyes briefly see with us a hurtful clarity, or memory suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws unkind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality bound to them takes leave of us. Our souls dependent upon their nurture now shrink, wizened. Our minds formed and informed by their radiance fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces filled with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same again, whisper to us, they existed. Now we can be better, for they existed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kadreen. Appreciate you so much for doing that. It was beautiful. All right, we have another performer on deck, Robert Carpenter. I'm going to introduce Robert as he gets onto the screen. Robert Carpenter, friends with Kadreen, so excited that you're here with us today. Robert is a senior at USF, majoring in religious studies, graduating in the spring 2022. He's also a member and a keyboardist for the USF Gospel Choir. He also shares his talents within his community and other religious organizations in the Tampa Bay area. Welcome, Robert. Thank you so much. He will be singing a song, A Change is Gonna Come. So excited for this. Take it away, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. I'm really excited, glad and grateful to be a part of this great event. And when I was presented with this opportunity, I was like, okay, what am I going to sing? But eventually it came to me, and I think this song is important and just serves as a reminder for us as we continue to fight and work towards, in this journey that we have. So hope you guys enjoy it. A change is gonna come. I was born by the river in a little tent, yeah. And just like that river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it is. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keeps telling me, don't hang around, 'cause it's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me, please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it is, yeah. There's been times that I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come, yeah. Oh, yes, it is. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it is, yeah. 'Cause it's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it is. Thank you.
Oh my God. Woo! Oh my God, I started tearing. Oh my God, that was beautiful. I want to cry. I'm sorry, I'm emotional. That was amazing, Robert. Thank you so, so much. Beautiful. Look at the chat. It's everything. All three performances were amazing. Love you all. I had a last minute entry, Celine, but I don't see her in the chat. Is Celine here? I think Kadreen went to go look. It was one of her friends, and I know she wanted to sing, but how about we reflect and decompress over that? We have such amazing students. I'm so glad they were able to be part of this. I cannot wait until next year when we can do this event in person. But I think we did a pretty good job with this year. Thank you all for coming out. I really appreciate it. I see Dr. Jones, Winston Jones, you have your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to thank everyone for this wonderful expression today. Of being a Texan, I kind of understand. I grew up with Juneteenth. It's a significant day in my family. We always get together and barbecue and talk and do community work. And so I'm, as Dr. Priddle said, I'm trying to teach my son, being born in Florida, I'm trying to teach him to understand the nuance of what that means. We talked about it last year. He's 12, and we talked about it seriously for the first time last year. And he was amazed by it in some ways. He's so far in his mind from that experience, but I feel very connected to it and close to it from where I grew up. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank all the students for performing. That was beautiful. The speeches, the poems. It makes me proud, excited, and just grateful that we have young people experiencing and connecting in a way that I know that the struggle, the cause, the battle, the emphasis won't be lost. So thank you so much. And from the Office of Multicultural Affairs, the Dean of Students Office here at the University of South Florida, we really appreciate everything that you all have done today. And my staff, Johanna, Nicole, Dwayne, everybody on staff, thank you so much for putting this together for the first time that we've done it in the history, I believe, of the Office of Multicultural Affairs. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Winston. And before, Nikki, you close it out, we got another student that wanted to perform. Celine, you want to get on the call? Let's keep this rolling, right? We got a good momentum. We're making good time. So, hey, Celine, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can see me well. Yeah. Everything is good. Hi, I'm Celine. I am a senior here at USF. I am majoring in psychology. I'm super excited that I have the opportunity to be here with everyone. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna be singing For You Freedom by Pharrell Williams, and yeah.
All right, girl, whenever you're ready. We're excited.
Just tell me if you can hear everything. It's
yes.
Good. Okay. Whew. Hold on to me, don't let me go. Who cares what they see? Who cares what they know? Your first name is Free, last name is Dawn. But you still believe in where we're from. Man's red flower, it's in every living thing. Mind, use your power, spirit, use your wings. Freedom, 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 freedom. Yeah. Hold on to me, don't let me go. Cheetahs need to eat, run antelope. Your first name is King, last name is Dawn. 'Cause you still believe in everyone. When a baby first breathes, when night sees sunrise, when the whale hunts the sea, when man recognizes freedom, 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 Be it from the heat, the electric one. Does it shock you to see he left us his son? Atoms in the air, organisms in the sea. The sun and yes man are made of the same things. Freedom, freedom, yeah, freedom, 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 freedom. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, again, thank you so much, Celine. Thank you for joining us. Check the chat. You rock. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kadreen, also for pulling everybody together here for us. Appreciate all the performers so much. Okay, now I'm going to take it away to Nikki Luckett.
Oh my gosh, I am like super, super, super excited. I'm so excited for the celebration. I'm excited that everyone came. I'm excited for the performances of our students, and it's just making me more excited to be in person so that we can work with you all. One USF, our One OMA team, I cannot thank y'all enough for just being united and us working together. Thank you so much. So in closing, I just want to say thank you all for being here with us for this exceptional event. We learned about our past, we rejoiced, we look into the present, and now we all need to look into the future. I want to remind everyone tomorrow, so please join a special Enlightenment series entitled Embarking Conversations on Racism, Power, and Politics. Tomorrow at noon, from noon to 1, I'll put the link in the chat so you can all attend that. We encourage you to find additional ways to celebrate Juneteenth this weekend, and not only this weekend, but for the rest of our lives. Thank you, thank you, thank you. There will be many other opportunities for you to engage in the Tampa Bay area and online if you won't be in person. Please take this time to reflect, to learn, and to rejoice. And again, thank you all for this community of coming together. Follow us on Bulls Connect, so you'll know when our next event is taking place. You can also find our events and trainings and everything on our website. We'll put that in the chat also. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Have a good day.
Yes,
Enjoy
you
the
too.
weekend.
Thank you. Brittany, you can stop the recording now.